Just pull up my pants and do the rock away. Lean back, lean back, lean back. Come on, I said my nigga don't dance. Just pull up my pants and do the rock away. Come on, lean back, lean back, lean back. All the party people across the world. It ain't never gonna stop. Yeah, streets is out. Can you hear me? Bronx, come on. It's 2 up in the morning, girl, and the DJ playing that song. Now, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. It's Tuesday, which means we got the BluePrint Power Hour during the first hour. Second hour of the show today, we're going to talk about how a brain injury or even like a bump on your head, a good wallop on your head, can actually seed the development of a brain tumor. This is exciting yet distressing information we're going to be talking about later. I just realized I didn't put Rob's music in, so I'm dropping it in right now. Be patient with me. Of course, before we do anything else, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods. Right now, if you go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary, you can pick up a box of tasty pastries, the new birthday cake style, for 10% off using the code SHR10. Plus, shop around. They have great seasoned almonds. They have great nut butters that have zero sugar in them. If you really want to stay away from sugar, the place to do it is Legendary Foods. shrnetwork.biz/legendary is where to go, and SHR10 is the code. Also, if you don't want to spend a penny, but you want to win a box, and we have winners, man. Everybody's excited. We're getting people who are winning. We'll start announcing the winners later this week. I'm accumulating the names, getting their addresses so we can ship them their prize. But if you want to win a box of the new birthday cake tasty pastry, which is an unbelievable, decadent tasting snack with 20 grams of protein and no sugar, all you have to do is listen for the secret word during the commercial break, email that secret word to onair@superhumanradio.net, and you're entered to win. And there's a box given away every day. So just keep doing it, because eventually you'll win. We're giving away 20 a week. A month, 5 a week. So it doesn't get better than that. Check it out and listen for the secret word. I'm getting Rob's music pulled in here. Hold on one second. So the other thing I want to talk about before we get started is we're giving away 5 meteors. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/free meteor to enter, we're giving away 5 of the Milestorm meteors. I love this thing. Sometimes when I'm using it, people think I'm doing something suspicious because you can hear that. But this is an amazing device. It's a massage ball that you can use anywhere, and it has 3 different levels of vibration. And it's heated if you want heat. And what I do is I put it in the chair over here and I leave it right there up against my lumbar spine, and I push back on it. It just feels so good. My whole back feels it. Well, this is a brilliant little device, and you can win one of 5 by following the instructions here and going to shrnetwork.biz/free meteor. So get in there and make sure that you are entered to win one of 5 of those. And now, without further delay, we will roll on with Rob Regish's music. There we go.
Calling all BluePrint Army. Fall in line. It's time for the BluePrint Power Hour with Coach Rob Regish on the Superhuman Radio Network.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great, man. I started week 2 of getting back to the gym, and and everything seems to be healing up nicely, including this hip. So I'm hopeful next week I can open it up and really get going. But hey, life's good, you know.
You know what? I was just thinking about this. Like my body is changing already from being consistent just for what, maybe 3 or 4 weeks now. Doing cardio in the morning like I'm supposed to. I feel better. I'm already getting really strong again, which makes me happy. But the goal has to be to do this for the rest of the year. Injury-free, interruption-free, navigating the challenges of life and work and family and everything else, and do this for the rest of this year. And I will be back to my best shape and conditioning ever. That's the magic. Yeah, I could do it for a couple months, no problem. It seems like I can always do it for a couple months.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's been said before, and it's true. You can't gain if you can't train.
That's right. And on that note, we have a question from Clarence Boyd. He says, what can I do to increase my speed and explosiveness? I'm really strong, but find that I'm slow when playing pickup basketball with my friends.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys who lift heavy and have for years. And due to tightness or poor mobility, they lack this, I'll call it first step quickness or explosiveness. However, just because you lift heavy weights and you're a big guy doesn't mean you can't be fast and explosive. You need only look at 300-pound plus NFL linemen that are running incredibly fast 40-yard dashes. And that's them. I mean, the running backs they're what, 225 now? And they're plenty quick. They can accelerate to blistering speed. So just because you're big and strong doesn't mean you can't be fast and explosive. So that goes to show it's possible. So the big question is what's the best way to do this? The best tools that I've found to convert strength to speed and explosiveness in no particular order are the following. 1, moving lighter weights faster. Nobody wants to lift light, but there's a method to the madness. Number 2, band sprints, which I'll get into in a little bit more extensively, focusing on that first step quickness. 3, the standing long jump. 4, the standing high jump. And then 5, if you still have the gas left, depth jumps from boxes of various heights, rebounding and jumping back up as quickly as you can. So-called checkmark strength, if you read the works of Dr. Squat Fred Hatfield in his excellent book, Power, going back over 30 years. Anyway, so by all means, keep lifting weights. However, I would encourage you not to lift heavy all the time, because the more weight you pile on the bar, the slower it moves. It's just a universal thing, right? Heavy weights, whatever heavy is for you, especially approaching your 1 rep max, is not going to move fast. Instead, I want you to have at least 1 day a week where you work with 50%, just 50% of your 1 rep max, and move that bar as fast as possible. Westside has pretty much been at the forefront of this over the years. And so they apply it to the bench, the squat, and the deadlift. And so here's what they do, or at least last I knew. For the squat and deadlift, you want to work up to 10 to 12 sets of 2 repetitions. You only rest between 30 and 45 seconds between sets, but the key thing is to move that bar as quickly as possible. If you can do it in 3 reps, then do it in 3. I wouldn't do more than 3 though, because speed quickly drops off. For the bench press, it's 8 to 10 sets of 3 repetitions, again with 30 to 45 seconds in between sets. The band sprints, as the name implies, I guess, you're sprinting with the band usually hooked around your belt, with the other end tethered to either a support beam, like let's say on a power rack, or a sled maybe loaded with a lot of weight, or a partner. The partner is actually best because he can keep you from springing back and getting flung into a power rack.
Mhm.
So what you want to do here is sprint as quickly as you can out of the blocks from a dead stop and keep sprinting hard until the band, of course, tries to pull you back. Do not, however, try and turn around to go back because you're just asking for a knee injury. Don't ask me how I found that out. And that's really where the partner is ideal, right? Because they can go with you a little bit and minimize any of that pullback. The standing long jump and the standing high jump should be self-explanatory. What I do is I use a little piece of chalk and I mark off right at the top of my jump and also where my heels hit in terms of the long jump. You will have, and you should measure it to have a reference standard, if you will. It's almost like a 1 rep max in weightlifting. Your goal is to obviously exceed those, right? Higher and farther. So those two are excellent, really for converting speed to strength. And then finally, depth jumps are a form of plyometrics, right? And they're excellent at teaching you to be explosive. They're not, there are some downsides to them, but essentially they're teaching you to convert, right? All that eccentric downward energy that's built into the muscle is then released, right? In an explosive burst. And you learn real fast. You can't stay in contact with the floor very long because if you do, you're not going to be able to rebound as high. I would tell you this too. Don't go crazy on the box height. No more than like 3 feet, especially to start. 2 is probably better for most people just to get the hang of it when you're starting out. So I would do those 5 things. I prioritize the first 3. And if you still have the gas, do the last 2. You should notice pretty big improvements within the first month, especially on your high jump, standing high jump, and standing long jump. And it's pretty cool to watch too.
What about pushing a sled? Not too heavy, but you literally blasting off and sprinting with it for 20 feet at a time to create explosive strength in the legs.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that, but similar to the barbell, right? You can load it a lot lighter,
right,
and then explode with it over 10, 20, 40 yards. I wouldn't go much more than that.
Yeah, no. You want to just real short, blast off, rest for a couple seconds, blast off. Seems like it would help a little bit. So we have a question. I don't know, and I'm just putting it up for reference. Any info on bovine colostrum? I'm Robert. I'm forgetting. Did we promise to look something up? Could you?
Didn't you? Wasn't it Mercoba?
Percoba, yeah, Percoba. That's the best. That's the best colostrum I know about. But I don't know if we promised some other research to him. So expand on your comment, and we'll definitely get to it. The next question comes from Mike Sharp.
Yep.
He says, "How come I'm having trouble finding bulk beta alanine? I'm not. AST no longer makes their product. In fact, I don't think they even have capsules anymore. Same deal with a lot of other companies like Biotest. Is there a shortage or something?"
No, there's no shortage. The simple truth of the matter, unfortunately, is that beta alanine doesn't move well for most supplement companies. And so instead, what they do is they try to include it in their pre-workouts or their intra-workout. That, given it helps them sell it a little bit because of the mild flushing that you get, paresthesia.
But given the fact that you have to load it, isn't that silly to do that? Like, that's not fair to the consumer.
Yeah, I never like that. And also beta alanine is best taken with some food. So some insulin release. I don't particularly like food before a workout, especially a lot of food, which makes me, sleepy. And you don't want the blood in your stomach. You want it in your muscles. But be that as it may, they usually combine beta alanine in their pre-workout with a very high dose of caffeine, right? Which causes these kids to think, oh gosh, something's working.
I feel it.
You can feel it. In fact, the science of beta alanine at this point is more robust than it was for creatine at the same point in time. I don't think it's going to have the same tail on it for reasons I'll get into, but scientists can very clearly show muscle carnosine levels rising and in fact increasing in muscle tissue out to the third, even sometimes fourth month and beyond. It's not a boom, loading phase and you're done in a week like creatine.
Right.
It's really, being consistent and patient with it over 3 to 4 months, and then you're loaded. And the good news there is, even though it took a long time to load, it takes a long time to exit the muscle. It's not like creatine and gone in a month. So it's a little perplexing, right? We have this supplement, which is rock solid in the scientific literature. You can clearly measure, the benefits that it's having. If you compare that to something like Tribulus, which science has almost universally panned, at least if you're looking at its effect on muscle growth, standalone Trib is more popular than ever, and you'll find it as a standalone in many companies' lineup. But beta alanine is disappearing in most. Biotest is a great example. Their first product almost 25 years ago was Tribex, right? Tribulus product. Well, they still offer standalone Tribex, if I'm not mistaken, while their beta alanine product came and went. And they did the time release one, which you don't need, but for some people, they like it. So we've got this really weird dynamic going on. And I just pointed out because things aren't always, let's say, as they seem. I never considered doing a beta alanine solo product for various reasons. But when when it came time to formulate Synthogen about 8 years ago, I made sure beta alanine was in there. Now it's not in there for the reason that most companies put it in, and in fact, most people take it. When most people take it, it combines with the amino acid L-histidine to form carnosine. And typically, guys are taking, 3, 6, sometimes even more grams a day. There's a little problem with that, especially if it's in your pre or intra workout. L-histidine is one of the essential amino acids. You pull that or any essential amino acid out of circulation at that critical time and divert it to form muscle carnosine, protein synthesis takes it on the chin, not once, but twice. And that's why I include other things like orotic acid in there. To the armchair skeptic, that might appear duplicative, right? To those in the know, though, it's anything but. I would love to see everyone take it, because beyond the improvements in, let's say, reps that on sets that exceed 1 minute or activities that exceed 1 minute, it has some very good science on being, believe it or not, an antidepressant and especially an anti-aging compound. So, it is good stuff. You just need to be careful with it, with when you take it and with what. The final caution on beta alanine is this: if you do have bulk powder and you're tempted to load more than 6 grams a day, don't, because you're very quickly going to find your heart starts skipping beats due to the fact that beta alanine will displace taurine, which is one of the things that regulates heart rhythm.
So it sounds to me like, first of all, you can buy bulk beta alanine. I'm looking at bulksupplements.com, $29.96 for a kilo. But then it sounds to me like you should buy essential amino acids and taurine with it. You probably should take the essential amino acids with your beta alanine and your taurine sometime later in the day.
Yeah, your points are well taken. I have a beef with that bulk supplement.
Why?
It's another. Well, I had an order, a big order, that was lost in the mail, and they refused to reimburse me. We're talking about an order that was, I want to say, maybe close to $150.
So they never resolved it with you?
No, they basically said, you're SOL. That And the fact that their turkesterone product was analyzed by the Institute of Chemistry and Plant Sciences in Uzbekistan, the world experts on that particular product. And it was found to have, are you ready for this? None detectable. No turkesterone in your turkesterone powder. So I'm not saying all their products are
Well,
like
no.
that.
Here's what I'd like to say. Then I think anybody listening to this show, we started talking about them around the 18-minute mark. Somebody should forward them a link either to this video or to the audio podcast, and we'd be happy to talk to them about this. If they want, I'm plugging them here, but I don't want to plug a company that's selling stuff that's bunk. So I didn't know about that. But if you can get bulk to beta alanine somewhere, legit, and you can add some EAAs to it. If you're going to take it in the morning hours before you work out, that might make sense. And then don't forget to supplement with additional taurine as well. But yeah, I mean that's kind of sad that maybe they don't know you do a podcast. That the episode we get 50,000 downloads of this episode every week.
Yeah, there's two sides to every story. What really bothered me was I never saw them. The turkesterone was brought to their attention, and they never even bothered to respond. So, who knows?
I'm going to get to the question about colostrum in a second. Let's get this question handled first. So Shay McCrae says, like you, I powerlifted for many years, but I'm thinking about switching to calisthenics. Will I lose most of the muscle I gained? Also, I have a young son. If he decides to do body weight stuff with me, will he be able to build muscle, big muscle, or will he need weights for that?
Yeah. So first things first, if you built yourself up, from let's say 150 pounds to over 200 pounds of mostly muscle, and you did that over, years, your muscle is not going to disappear just because you're no longer lifting weights. You can certainly challenge them with the correct calisthenics. Personally, I look at it like this. It took me 35 years, right, to build this, and it's going to take, a hell of a lot for it to come off. I'm dieting hard right now, and it's tough. So your muscle, I would guess, is not going anywhere anytime soon. I suspect it'll be the same for most people in that situation. Some might even gain muscle. How? Well, if you've been lifting weights for many years, right, especially lifting heavy, you've thickened your actual muscle fibers, right? Myofibrillar hypertrophy. Most of that is if you're training in the rep range of 3 to 5, maybe 6, up to 8 reps. I wouldn't go more than 8. After that, you're getting into a bodybuilding range. That develops the thick muscle, but also great strength, right? Since so much of the strength of your strength comes from the central nervous system learning about how to contract muscle better. Yeah. It's actually developing new and reinforcing existing electrical impulses that begin in your brain, run down your spinal cord, traverse a nerve running to the muscle, telling it to contract maximally.
And there's an aspect to this that I just like to touch on that's never discussed.
Yeah.
But once you've been strong, you will always be strong because of a mechanism in the brain designed to keep people from hurting themselves with their own strength. And it's called disinhibition. So right. when you know what it feels like to have 700 pounds on your back, you may be in your 60s and not be able to do 700 pounds again, but you're going to be a lot stronger than the muscle you carry because your brain has already learned disinhibition. It's already learned, hey, we've done this before. We can do it again. We've been down this road before. So that serves you well as you age, because there's a lot of niggling little things that happen as you age that most people, oh, I got to take a pill. And you're just like, nah, this ain't no big deal because I know what it feels like to actually be under stress, under pressure,
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that I've noticed too. Anyway, with respect to actually building muscle with calisthenics, yeah, it can be done. But the same principles that apply with the weights apply here too. Your volume is going to need to increase a bit. It's very clear that there is a threshold of mechanical work that must happen to exhaust not the central nervous system, but the muscle of all of its chemical energy. This is how muscle is built. You exhaust it, you go home, you eat, you rest, and it super compensates by stuffing even more chemical energy in there to deal with that stress if it ever occurs in the future. So you can grow that way. The other half of this, though, is eating, right? Eating big, eating a lot. Overfeeding and powerlifting type training or strength training pretty much go hand in hand, meaning, you can eat another 2-3 inches on your stomach and it'll actually help you lift your squat and deadlift and bench will go up. So, they're like peanut butter and jelly. Body weight training, though, and overeating or overfeeding does not. In fact, overeating will work against every single movement in your body weight work that you perform. Some more than others. For example, the chin up where you're lifting 100% of your weight versus the push up where you're lifting maybe 65. The simplest way to trigger growth, right, as I said before, is to exhaust the muscle of chemical energy. Building more muscle from there, you do need the requisite calories, but instead of overfeeding to the tune of 20 times body weight in calories, I would just start at 15. And if that's not moving it up, 16, maybe 17. I wouldn't go much beyond that, though. And I'd also watch my salt intake because, you eat out and you drink enough water, you're going to see it on the scale the next day.
You're going to feel it. If you do pull-ups, you're going to feel it.
Yeah. I mean, 3 to 5 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but man, it's the difference between, a good set of chin-ups and not even getting one. So the biggest problem is that without the overeating, the body's ability to put that chemical energy back into the muscle is limited. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's not going to be what it is. But when you put it under the downpour, right, of body weight times 20 calories when you're bulking with, big barbell lifts. So anyway, in terms of setting goals, I would say, a much more reasonable solution for your son, other than that overfeeding thing, is to use elements of both, meaning, 80% weights, 20% body weight. Okay, at least when he's in his teens and his 20s. At a minimum, though, when it comes to that body weight work, keep the chin up and one advanced push-up variation in the mix. And the reason I say that is
you dropped off after you said keep the chin up. Pick up from there. Keep the chin up and
keep the chin up at a minimum in the rotation because it keeps you honest, right? Just like we talked about, your son might put 10 pounds on in a month. With the chin up, it's going to tell him real quick what that 10 pounds was made of. So, those things kind of show up real fast. But bottom line, both you and your son can use calisthenics to grow. More so you, because your son is young and while his joints are good, he can make a run at the weights if he so chooses.
Before we go into the break, Robert Thompson said, he started newborn calf replacement colostrum. He purchased it at Tractor Supply. It's 55% protein, and it's only $15 a pound. I'm going to look for a Tractor Supply in my area. That is really a good price.
Yeah.
I don't know about the cleanliness of it if it's made for bovine, but hell, $15 a pound. That's like, or is he saying $5 a pound? It looks like, I don't know if that's a 1 or an exclamation point.
Yeah, I mean, even more so if it's standardized for growth factors and immunoglobulins and all the
No,
other
it's
stuff.
not going to be standardized. It's going to be bulk colostrum. But who cares? You could take more at that price.
Yeah, yes, you
I know
can.
Pacoba's expensive. It's not $15 a pound. I can tell you that right now. I'm going to look for a Tractor Supply today and see if they have it in my town. I'm definitely going to give it a try because I love colostrum. It's great stuff. We have to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have a question from Earl Hebner. And those of you watching live, you can obviously post your questions as well. You are watching and listening to the BluePrint Power Hour. Go to CoachRobRegish.com to learn more about all of Coach's work. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need testosterone booster at work? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. January is World Carnivore Month, and more people are finding the carnivore diet alleviates the symptoms of autoimmune disorders as well as digestive and gut problems. But there's one issue. The carnivore diet is called the low residue diet because you're not eating plants and you're not getting fiber, and the protein takes longer and longer to digest. Some people notice that they are very constipated in the early phases of their carnivore diet adventure. Well, I have the solution. It's a product by Bioptimizers called P3OM. P3OM is a probiotic that is specifically designed to digest protein. In fact, P3OM doubles its population in your gut every 20 minutes, making it easier and faster to digest the protein you're consuming on your carnivore diet. If you find the carnivore diet is hard for you to stick to, don't give up. Just add P3OM into the mix and you'll love it. Go to shrnetwork.biz/P3OM and use the code SUPERHUMAN, that's SUPERHUMAN, and save 10% off today. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural development. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor? Strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. I gotta plug something that I really like.
Yeah.
It's a company called HelloFresh. You know, I've never really been a fan of these services that prepare the foods. You cook it yourself, but they send you everything. I just, for some reason, I just couldn't get my head around it. Like, well, you know, I can just pick up all that stuff at the grocery myself. But it turns out, like, why do that? It's no more expensive to use HelloFresh as it is to just go shopping at your local grocery store. And so when we first started talking about HelloFresh on the show, you know, they sent me a couple meals and they were like, wow, these meals are really good. Elisa said to me, wow, we had like an Indian style chicken dish one night. We had a gnocchi dish. I like potato gnocchi. It's one of the things I will eat.
It doesn't taste like packaged food.
No. Have you tried HelloFresh?
No, but our neighbor got it for, you know, I don't know how long she's been using it. And she said, you know, this does not taste like a packaged food product.
You know what? We signed up out of our own pocket. We're getting 3 meals a week now.
Wow.
And I got to tell you something. You know, I eat the same foods day in and day out, and I'm cool with that. Elisa likes a little bit more spice in her life. She likes a little bit something better here and there. But everything is in there. Like if the salad calls for cucumber, tomato, and bib lettuce, it's in there. Everything is in there. It's amazing. You open the bag up, you know, and I add a little protein. Last night we had my nephew over, so I added a little chicken to it. But we had this shawarma spice chicken. I guess it's a Persian dish. I'm going to put a picture of it up. This was my dish. Everything you see on that plate came with it. The cucumbers, the shallots, the rice, everything. And it takes maybe about 35, maybe 40 minutes to prepare the meal.
Wow.
But it tastes like a gourmet friggin' meal. It's unbelievable. Now, here's some interesting stuff about HelloFresh. They are a sponsor of the show right now. And so I want to promote them. If you're a busy person and you come home and you eat the wrong foods because you don't have food to eat, because you couldn't go to the store, because you got the kids and you got soccer and you got everything else, this is where to go. It's HelloFresh.com/superhuman10. You get 10 free meals, including shipping. They have 23 different recipes each week to choose from. They have a prepared menu. They're sensitive to low carb, carb smart, vegetarian, pescatarian, anything, high protein, whatever your style of eating, you will find meals. And there'll be meals that will expand your eating horizons. I've never had shawarma chicken with rice before.
I never even heard of it.
Yeah, we're going to order it again. It's so good. And plus, there's a great deal of gratification in making a meal with complete, easy instructions. They have these instruction cards. It's so simple. You boil the rice. While you're boiling the rice, you do this. And these are gourmet freaking meals. They're unbelievable.
Yeah. Does Elisa do the cooking?
Well, she does right now because I'm at work, and so she knows. And we just signed up for 3 meals a week, right? So it's not practical for us to do 5 meals a week because there's a lot of nights where we have to eat on the run late because we're on the go. We do a lot of things. We're busy. We're running businesses, so we know we can commit to 3 meals a week to sit down at the table and eat them. And the prices I looked at the prices that we're paying for these 3 meals, and I'm like, I would have to go to Kroger's, shop around, find a recipe, look at the recipe, what to buy. It's so simple. You get the bag, you open it up, a half hour later, you're eating a gourmet meal, and your family's loving it too. So again, HelloFresh is offering my audience 10 free meals, including shipping. You can take advantage of this offer by going to HelloFresh.com/superhuman10. Use the code superhuman10. I'm going to put the picture back up one more time for those of you who are listening to the podcast. I'm sorry you can't see this, but look at that. I mean, seriously, that is unbelievable. And that was like 30 minutes. Boom. It was on the table for 3 of us. It was fantastic. And I loved it so much. We're going to order the shawarma spice chicken out of this world. Exotic, delicious, easy to make. Again, HelloFresh.com/superhuman10. Use the code superhuman10. Check it out. And I'd like to hear feedback. We order some of these meals. We really don't know what they are. And then you get them and you're like, wow, if you got this in a restaurant, you would rave over it and you're sitting at your kitchen table eating it 30 minutes later. Great tool. So Robert Thompson said it is $15 at Tractor Supply. It's not 100% colostrum, but colostrum is the first ingredient. I believe the brand is Dumor, Dumor. So I'm going to check it out. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's 50% colostrum and 50% powdered milk. That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
They actually consider that second or third day colostrum. First day colostrum is the only thing that's 100% colostrum. So that's all right. So the next question comes from Earl Hebner. He says, I just read about something called German volume training. You just learned about it now? Rob's been talking about it for years. No, I'm only kidding, Earl. I'm just kidding. They make it sound like a great way to gain mass. They even said it was the best way. I'd like to put 30 more pounds of muscle on. What do you think? Should I train this way?
Yeah. It's interesting, right? There's always a new crop of people that are just reading about this stuff. So to them, it's brand new. And the reality is, after you've been around for a while, like you and I, you've seen it come in and out of fashion. If I'm not mistaken, it was originally popularized in this country by Vince Gironda. That would have been circa the 1950s. Okay. 20 years ago or so, maybe 25, a Canadian strength coach, Charles Poliquin, God rest his soul, he brought it around again, and it became popular at that point too. If I'm not mistaken, he also tweaked it a little bit. But essentially, right, 10 sets of 10 reps. So usually on big basic exercises. That results, of course, in 100 total reps, and that's a lot, okay? Consider, for example, Bill Starr, right? His tried and true sets of 5 program only results in a quarter of the volume of German volume training. Guys still, they grow like weeds on it. Does German volume training work? That's a tough question to answer. Not for me. I mean, I tried it multiple times and did not do well on it. I suspect that 10 sets of 10, well, it's a lot of loading for the muscle and maybe a big stimulus for growth. It also results in a lot of cortisol backlash. And as time went on, I actually became weaker. That, despite the fact that I inserted extra rest days. I mean, I pulled every trick I could out of the book, and I just couldn't recover from those workouts. I got very run down, and once I got injured, and after that, I said, oh, no more. It's not for me. Now, I have the opportunity to speak to many people since then that have tried it, and I would tell you that more of them had an experience like mine than people who came back raving about it. So for most people, here's what I would tell you. It may be useful every now and then as a shock workout to get that, grow message across to your body. But I can't see people, at least genetically typical people, using it with any kind of regularity and growing from it. Most people, truth be told, I think would grow much better on a 5x5. Or, if you want to take things up from there, use ladders. Ladders, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rep spread is going to do a lot for you, right? Because if you do complete all 3 of those ladders, that's 60 total reps, which is in and of itself more than double of what Star's 5x5 volume is. And in my experience, it doesn't wear you down like German volume training would. Now, it's perfectly acceptable to reverse that rep spread. So instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you start with 5 reps and each successive set goes down a rep. Mentally, it's really interesting. Mentally, it's easier, or at least it seems so, to move through all 3 ladders. But if you do the math, right, assuming the loading stays the same, the total tonnage is the same. So however you do it, I don't care. But, when you want to increase total tonnage, that's a great way to do it. let's get to the real answer. You say you want to gain 30 pounds of muscle. Here would be my first pick. I would buy the book Super Squats. I wouldn't read it once. I'd read it twice. I would take it to heart and I would do it. And the reason is that simple, I didn't say easy, simple program has put more muscle on people than most other routines combined. It is time tested. And when I say that, it was originally written and has been used quite successfully since the 1930s. And if you study old-time strongman books, you will see that that's the case. Fortunately, Perry Rader, who was the owner of the original Iron Man magazine, kind of brought 20 rep squats, and milk back to the forefront. But even if you don't want to do that, like I said, 5x5 ladders, Charles Staley's escalating density training, even the loading patterns that I prescribe, I would consider all far superior to German volume training, right? At least for any consistent period of time. That's just my opinion, but I've seen a lot of people get great results with a lot less wear and tear on those other programs. So give them a shot. I'm confident one of them will work for you.
Dr. Brad Schoenfeld will be on in February. He just published a series of new papers, and he put something on Twitter last week as a result of the papers he's published, and it said, lightweight, high volume builds muscle. Heavyweight, low volume builds muscle. It's like there were three different ones, and the end result is like the thing that people need to focus on more than I kind of feel like training is like dieting. They always say, well, what's the diet that you're more likely to stick to the longest? You'll see results. What's the training style you're most likely to stick to the longest? You'll see results if you do one thing, and that's focus on progression.
Yep.
Adding weight, adding reps, adding weight, adding reps, because it doesn't matter what you do. If you focus on progression, you're getting stronger.
Yeah, if you can do that consistently, you're going to grow muscle.
We're going to take our last commercial break of this segment and come back. We have one more question to answer and then the blueprint tip of the day. And then later in the show, we're going to be joined by Dr. Gary Bader. And we're going to talk about some research that points at previous brain injury as being the beginning of a potential tumor. This is phenomenal research. In fact, a good friend of mine and a friend of the show, Andrew Scarbo, who came on my show a few years ago when he was diagnosed with brain cancer. He's an advocate for the ketogenic diet and some other things, and he's a survivor. He was given a year to live, and that was like 4 years ago. But I emailed him last night, and I said, Andy, I'm doing this show. And he said, I saw the paper, and it's fascinating. And he did, in fact, have a brain injury that later turned into a glioblastoma, I think, or astrocytoma. I forget what it was. But this is really good research, because there's a lot of people out there who've had brain injuries and don't think that it's, I'm better, my concussion went away. There's more to this story. So we're going to talk about that at the top of the hour. Stick around. We'll be right back with more of the Blueprint Power Hour. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order. January is World Carnivore Month, and more people are finding the carnivore diet alleviates the symptoms of autoimmune disorders as well as digestive and gut problems. But there's one issue. The carnivore diet is called the low residue diet because you're not eating plants and you're not getting fiber, and the protein takes longer and longer to digest. Some people notice that they are very constipated in the early phases of their carnivore diet adventure. Well, I have the solution. It's a product by Bioptimizers called P3OM. P3OM is a probiotic probiotic that is specifically designed to digest protein. In fact, P3OM doubles its population in your gut every 20 minutes, making it easier and faster to digest the protein you're consuming on your carnivore diet. If you find the carnivore diet is hard for you to stick to, don't give up. Just add P3OM into the mix and you'll love it. Go to shrnetwork.biz/P3OM and use the code SUPERHUMAN. That's SUPERHUMAN and save 10% off today. Meteor.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order. By now, you're aware of the cognitive benefits of nootropics. My friends over at Pure Nootropics are giving my listeners 10 to 30% off their already great prices on over 70 high-quality nootropics. Stock up on DHM so you can feel good after your holiday celebration, or try the Superhuman Stack to boost your brain and energize your day. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure, that's PURE, and start saving today. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. Rob, I got to ask you to make this next answer short because we went over here, or we can go to the blueprint tip of the day and you can answer this question next week, whatever you want to do.
I'll keep it short.
Okay, so there you go. So this comes from C. Brokaw. What's the single most dangerous supplement you can use? I ask because those are the ones which usually work and I want to take lots of them. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was trying to be funny, but this kind of set me off a little bit. Look, the assumption itself is wrong, right? He thinks the only products that work are dangerous. Well, I would point you to creatine as the primo example of that's not true. And nor do I think you need to be dabbling, certainly, in things like methylated prohormones and DNP. You can either prove that to yourself the hard way, and people have died from DNP, or you can take my advice. Come at it with a much more reasonable frame of mind, and I think what you'll get out of it will be a lot more than what you're proposing here. Yeah.
Okay, and so now we move right on to the blueprint tip of the day, which is home gym training. Beware strength training gimmicks.
One of the offshoots of COVID-19, right, has been the explosion in people that are training at home, which of course brings up the issue now of a home gym. Madison Avenue knows this, of course, and it's starting to show up on the TV, or it has been for a while. For many years, though, they've been selling unsuspecting, largely well-meaning people useless gimmicks that are destined for this spring's yard sale. So, look, as a few examples, believe it or not, in the recent past, they still had that that machine that had a belt around you that just shook you.
The one from the 1920s that shook women side to side, and they thought that was going to make them lose body fat, right?
Yeah, I mean, you were told, I guess, look, you don't have to exert yourself at all. Just sit
In
there.
fact, I would submit that women who have a lot of adipose tissue and body fat that's loose and jiggly, that all that will do is break down the collagen fibers and lead to greater accumulation of cellulite, or cellulite, whatever you want to say. I think that's a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea.
Believe it or not, that idea is still around in something called the Euro plate. And it does the same thing. You stand on what looks like a doctor scale, you press a few buttons, and all of a sudden the plate that you're standing on vibrates.
Now wait a minute. Vibration plate is completely different, quite frankly.
Okay.
I mean, vibration plate has a place. I mean, it really does. It's been shown to help people who have neuropathic pain. That gentle vibrating. There's different levels of frequency. There's undulating plates that seem to do like an elliptical motion versus just shaking side to side. There's a lot of good information about vibration plates. I thought you meant they actually still had the device that you put the belt around you.
Well, no, but it is geared. It was geared, at least the one I saw, towards fat loss.
Yeah, it's not gonna make you lose fat. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the vibration thing doesn't end there, though, right? Because somebody looked at it and said, "Hey, we can apply that to muscle building with this shake a weight thing."
That is the silliest thing I've ever seen. And I think whoever foisted that exercise device on the industry did it with tongue in cheek. They were like, let's see how many stupid people we could sell this device to, and they'll look even stupider holding that thing in their hand, going like it's. I don't even want to start the potential jokes about that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, according to the advertising, it allegedly causes up to 240 muscle contractions per minute. I don't know how they measure that, but look, if you're ever feeling down, you need a good laugh, you can visit their website, and I know you're going to be entertained. In the early 80s, there was something called a slim suit, which was aggressively marketed to overweight women. And so just picture tinfoil-like pants and a matching top, and you've got the slim suit. And the commercials, believe it or not, on YouTube, they're still out there, promising these women that they'll lose weight while watching TV, talking on the phone, and even sleeping. You know, direct quote, "You'll wake up weighing less every morning," right? So I guess if you want to look like a trash can, a steel trash can, have at it. Certainly, I think most people will remember the Bowflex. Which is, at least the last time I looked, is essentially, a nice padded leather seat with what looks like 10 or so power rods, or spider legs, as I call them, behind it. I see a lot of these at yard sales too. I guess it's, you could probably hang more laundry.
Have you ever trained on one?
No.
So my sister bought one. She was one of those people who, for like $39.95 a month, you can buy. It was overpriced. They compared it to a gym membership. But I got to tell you something. If you've never tried one, you may want to try one before you pass judgment on it. It continuous tension, and the resistance becomes greater and greater the farther you go.
Yeah, I have no doubt you can generate significant tension with those, power rods, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's the people ordering them. I see a disproportionate number on sidewalks.
I just think, well, first of all, the thing took up ridiculous amount of room and space in your room, number one, because it had those power rods jutting out behind you. Kind of looked like Emperor Ming's on Flash Gordon on his throne. But what they went for was, they could have just made a plate-loaded machine and it would have worked just as good, instead of those silly rods that took up so much space. I mean, it was just the novelty of these stupid things sticking out behind you, creating the resistance. That really what it came down to. But yeah, it took up crazy amount of room.
Yeah. So, and the newest spin on this is, I forget the name of it, but it looks like a big screen TV. Right up on your wall, and it's got a couple lever arms that come out and a couple cables, and I guess it's along the lines of Peloton. You know, it'll give you different workouts to do so you're not bored. The New York Times, as if you needed any other reason, as its evidence of lack of journalistic integrity, proudly lent their endorsement, and it read, "This machine knew my strength better than I did." You know what? If that's really true, my advice to you would be to get out of the strength training game and, you know, go play darts or something, because you're clearly not cut out for it. So look, none of these gimmicks, or very few, work, right? Very few have stood the ultimate test, which is the test of time. You want to build muscle and lose fat without a gym? You know, there's a whole school of thought that says your body is your gym. You know, you have guts, gravity, and a little bit of knowledge, you can build a lot of muscle and get very strong. So I would tell you to read the leading books on the subject, and practice it. The most you'll need in that case is usually a chin-up bar, maybe a weight vest. You know, strength depends. You know, is a 700 pound squatter and deadlifter strong? Sure. But if you ask them to do a one-legged squat, you know, most of them will fall on their butt, right? So the question becomes, you know, what do you do really for solid information about training, about diet, about supplements? And obviously, I would prefer if you would invest in my information, not just because I think it's the best, but, you know, it'll support the show too, and we're able to help a bunch of people every week, and we've got great reach. So
you have a special going on right now with the BluePrint Bulletin?
Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing it up is it expires on January 31st. It's by far the best offer, right, that I've ever put out there. And so, you know, the question becomes, I'm sure a lot of people are still on the fence. How do I know he's got stuff that can help me? How do I know it's all that he says it is? And how do I know if it's worth the asking price? Well, here's what I've done. You get the first 3 months for less than $5 a month, okay? $14.97.99, something like that.
For 3 months, right?
So, right. Before you even do that, you can get a free sample issue, which will allow you to at least to look at one issue and say, you know what, if the rest of them are like this, then yeah, I'm in. You'll get a free fast fat loss report that I've updated with a couple of new compounds, non-stimulant compounds, as it were, that I think are going to surprise a few people. And the newsletter will also tell you, because a lot of guys love supplements, where to put your money, what works, what doesn't, and where to get it. And if you so choose, not everybody, you know, does that. Here's one other thing one other point I want to make. Unlike almost every other newsletter out there, I accept no advertising, which means I am beholden to no one. The only people that I'm beholden to are my subscribers, and them getting more out of this than what the asking price is. So through January 31st, that's what's going on. You can get 3 months for less than $5 a month, free sample issue, free fast fat loss report, and immediate access to the entire library. Over 100 issues, 400 topics. Worst case, you walk away with some killer knowledge, stuff that will really elevate you right to another level.
How do they get it? Where do they go?
They can go to my website, coachrobregish.com.
There you go.
And the discount code first 90 is pre-filled. I think SHR5 will still work.
Right.
But I would love to be given the opportunity to prove it to you.
Right.
So please do that before the end of the month, and hopefully you come on board.
There you go. CoachRobRegish.com. Go there today, be stronger tomorrow. We're going to take one quick commercial break. We're going to be joined by Dr. Gary Bader to talk about this fascinating research on the incidence of brain injury and the occurrence of brain cancer. Stay tuned. You're listening to and watching Superhuman Radio. We'll be right back. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicell is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicell is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicell. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor? Strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Meteor. By now, you're aware of the cognitive benefits of nootropics. My friends over at Pure Nootropics are giving my listeners 10 to 30% off their already great prices on over 70 high-quality nootropics. Stock up on DHM so you can feel good after your holiday celebration, or try the Superhuman Stack to boost your brain and energize your day. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure, that's PURE, and start saving today. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Getting a massage post-workout is a proven strategy to facilitate better recovery. Getting to massage therapists can be difficult and expensive, especially in these times. The solution is the Meteor, a heated massage ball from Milestorm. Reduce pain and soreness and expedite recovery with the Meteor's research-backed vibration settings and therapeutic heat. It's convenient for travel and works on any body part. Go to shrnetwork.biz/meteor and use code SHR15 for 15% off and free shipping if you buy 2 or more. Start recovering better today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We're joined by Dr. Gary Bader. How you doing? You want me to call you Gary, so I'm going to call you Gary. Otherwise, I'd refer to you as Dr. Bader. I don't want my audience to think I'm really casual, because every now and then there's a study that I read a lot of papers. We do 4 to 5 shows a week, so it has to be good content. And Elisa sent me this study. I was like, oh, wow. Because there are so many potentials for brain trauma today. In fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, but those old dental machines that used to go around your head to take the full jaw pictures, they have now been linked to different forms of TBI that cause hypothalamus and pituitary malfunction. So when we talk about the brain, it's really delicate. And your work shows that brain injury may actually precede brain cancer. I was like, oh my God, we have to talk about this. Why this study, Dr. Gary? What preceded your work, other colleagues or your work, that made this study important?
So thanks for having me on the show, Carl. The real thing that we're trying to do here is trying to understand glioblastoma. So glioblastoma is the most common form of adult brain cancer. It's also the most serious, has a it's a terrible disease. Probably, when you think about brain cancer, I think everybody agrees that it's not a good thing. Glioblastoma is the worst of the worst in terms of brain cancers. You've probably heard of some famous people dying from glioblastoma: John McCain, Bo Biden, Gene Siskel from Siskel and Ebert. It affects, there's about 23,000 cases of brain 23,000 cases of brain cancer a year in the States, and about 17,000 deaths. So there's quite a lot of people affected. So because it's such a serious disease, we really want to try and find out what's the bottom of it and try to make better therapies. Right now, there aren't really any good therapies for this disease. The 5-year survival rate is less than 5%. So some people do survive longer, which is great. But if you don't have any treatment for this disease, you probably have 3 to 4 months to live. The basic type of treatment is surgery and radiation, and that extends the average lifespan of the patient to about 12 months, about a year. And there's one drug that is used in all these patients. It's called temozolomide, and it's damages DNA and tries to destroy the cancer cells, and that extends the average lifespan about 3 to 4 months. So on the whole, the average lifespan of somebody who's diagnosed is about 15 months, which
and in fact, isn't it true that in some cases radiation, in most cases radiation has very little effect, and in some cases may actually agitate the tumor's growth to some
so
degree?
That's a great question. I think that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to understand. A lot of cancer treatment tries to destroy the tissue, right? You have cancer, you want to kill it, you want to get it out of your body. So we turn to surgery, and radiation is a good way of killing cells. And if it's focused on the cancer cells, it can really work. And actually, frequently that's makes a big difference. But we don't know the effects of those treatments, and it would be better if we could find drugs that more carefully target the tumor cells and just kill them specifically, because, as you know, surgery and radiation causes injury to other cells, and it can make it worse. It's well known that radiation causes mutations, and it could cause the various types of cancer to come back even worse. So ideally, we would work towards better understanding of these tumors so that we can identify drugs that are more specific and just kill the cancer cells or stop it before it starts. And then we don't have to use radiation and surgery, which are damaging.
So I mentioned earlier that Andrew Scarborough is a personal friend of mine. He's also a friend of the show, and he actually appeared on my show a few years ago when he beat his brain cancer. And actually, I stand corrected. He's watching the show live. He's gone on to go to university. I think he's at the College of London, training as a physician to work in brain cancer. But he posted this to me, and I just want to put this up. It's 2 different things. He said that he read your research. He said his cancer may have risen from a cavernous hemangioma, I don't know what that is, which underwent malignant transformation over time. So he's keen to listen. He said when he was discharged from brain surgery, it actually said a cavernous hemangioma, aka cavernous angioma, but the histopathology came back as high-grade glioma with a high K score. It's very rare for a cavernoma to become malignant, but it does happen. And when it happens, he wrote in another that I'm paraphrasing now. When it happens, the prognosis is very bad because you have all of this amazing blood flow to feed the cancer. How did you guys come on? What pointed you at this? Did you do a review of a variety of cases where there was documented head injury and documented cancer? How did you discover this?
So that's a great question. We discovered this by really trying to understand the fundamentals of this tumor. And when we looked at the data with new technologies that we have access to, we discovered that the strongest signal in this data was a wound response signal. And that was not really known before. People have suspected this a little bit, and it's starting to be seen in other cancers. But we think that we stumbled across some fundamental biology that is telling us how these tumors are caused. Now, it's important to just for me to be clear that it's not just that that you're not going to get a tumor from getting a brain injury. There's millions of people who have traumatic brain injury a year. I think it's at least almost 3 million people a year have some kind of brain injury or concussion, and we don't see 3 million brain cancers a year. We only see 20,000 or something like that. So,
but the question is, what is different? That's the question. So, what's actually happening to them versus the other 2,999,000, whatever? Yeah,
exactly. So we think that it's a combination of two things. One is that you have some mutations that predispose you. It's basically unlucky that I read the last phrase of the thing that the quote that you just put up. I was very unlucky, and I think that sums it up. There's random mutations that affect us over aging in our cells and our tissues. So as we age, we build up mutations, and we don't know a lot about how these mutations work, but increasingly in recent years, we're starting to uncover more and more of them. And I think it's going to be that knowledge that we're getting about how mutations arise in our body over time is going to be give us a lot more insight into aging processes. And you can think of cancer in adults as an aging-related process. Young people, cancer. There's pediatric cancers, but most adult cancers are associated with older age. And it's the combination of these mutations building up over age as our bodies function over our lives, and additional things that we think might be happening. So in our case, there might be a mutation, rarely in just the right part of the brain and the right type of cell, and then an injury causes it to become cancerous. So the way we're thinking about this is that if you want to, for a cancer to grow, you need to have cells that grow, and cells grow. They can grow in size, but they can also, the main way that the cancer grows is through cell division, right? So, when we're growing as a baby, our cells are dividing and building up our bodies, and eventually we become adults, and then our cells mostly don't divide, except for certain parts of our body, like blood. And for the most part, a lot of our cells are fairly stable. And if we get wounded, though, if we cut our skin and the cells have to grow again to repair that wound, then the cell division process turns on again. And normally, what happens if you're wounded is once the wound is finished being repaired, the cells stop dividing. There's a signal that they know, that they can see in the tissue, that they know, okay, now's the time to stop. Now, what we think is happening here is that the mutations that might build up over time prevent that stop mechanism, prevent those brakes from turning on at the right time. So instead of the wound response turning on to repair the damage and then turning off, it just keeps on trying to repair the damage. And that generates more and more tissue. Imagine if your skin was repairing itself and it just never stopped and it just kept on growing, right? That basically is a tumor. So that's what we think is happening. And that's a different way of thinking about cancer than people have thought about before.
So do you even have an idea of what this mutation is at this point in time? And there's another question I want to ask you, but I'm just curious if you have any idea what this mutation is yet.
Yeah. So fortunately, over the past 10 years, since the Human Genome Project, people have sequenced the DNA of lots of thousands and thousands of cancers. And what's come out of that work, these big global efforts, is to understand the mutations that are common in cancer. And in many different cancers, these mutations have been mapped, and we know quite a lot about them. We can look at these mutations and we can say, okay, this is the most common form of cancer, this pattern of mutations we see over and over again in the most common forms of cancer. And here's another mutation that's rare, but maybe it's a slightly different type of cancer, different type of glioblastoma. And so that, we've started figuring out a lot more precise types of cancer, and each one's probably its own biological story. But that part's pretty clear. That's great. The advance that we have now with new technologies is that we can go and look at these mutations in individual cells. We couldn't do that before. 10 years ago, it was not really easy to look at these mutations in individual cells or look at their effects in individual cells. And just in the past 5 years, there's brand new scientific technologies that allow us to do that for the first time.
So the reason I ask this is, we've learned a lot from twin studies, like BRCA twin studies. One gets breast cancer, one that doesn't, which makes the epigenome much more fascinating today. So I'm willing to bet there's a large number of people out there that have the mutation and have suffered brain injuries, but never developed brain cancer, which would then make you say, well, something is triggering, something is playing a role. And maybe it's more controllable than the mutation, right? We can't change your mutated genes, but maybe from the epigenetic side, we can keep you from developing brain cancer. So my next question would be, do we know anything about the metabolic status of people who seem to have the mutation and then develop brain cancer after an injury? Are they by and large the average, type 2 diabetic or do they have other comorbidities that kind of go, oh, wait a minute, there's something else working here?
So those are interesting questions. Unfortunately, we don't know the answer to those questions yet. And the reason is because this is too new. Those are questions that come out of our work. Metabolism is very important. Epigenetics is definitely important in cancer. Comorbidities with other types of diseases is something that is seen a lot in the aging research, where people have a lot of information because everybody ages. We have millions of patients coming through the healthcare system. We can collect a lot of information about comorbidities, but for cancer, it's harder to collect all that information.
Right.
And also, these are new questions, right? So we don't have the answers yet, but I think thinking about these fundamental biological systems, like the system of wound healing. Now, wound healing has got to be one of the most fundamental parts of our body, right? You can imagine, every animal on the planet has to have wound healing, otherwise they wouldn't survive, right? So it's an important thing, but we don't know a lot about it, actually, how it works. And we're starting to learn more about it, and to have it connected, to have regeneration or wound healing connected with cancer sort of highlights the importance of understanding that fundamental biological system. And then we can say, well, epigenetics, metabolism, these other things are important in wound healing, and how can that go wrong and maybe cause cancer? Now, we're also not saying that this is the only way of causing cancer, right? We've seen this. We think that this is happening in the major subtype of glioblastoma. It's possible that it doesn't happen in some other subtypes, or it's possible that there are other ways of the same thing happening in the end. And we now have to look at more patients to figure out how general this is.
Yeah, to kind of connect the dots. I keep coming back. I've had Dr. Thomas Seyfried on the show a couple times. I don't know if you're familiar with who he is, but he's written a fascinating book called Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. Are you familiar with him?
No, I haven't read that book.
So, the mitochondria goes bad first, and that's what causes the gene oncogenes to switch on. And his approach to this is the inflammatory response on a cellular level. So since part of the healing process is inflammation, but the inflammation is supposed to resolve. Inflammation is doing a lot of work at, telling growth factors and all these things to come over here and work on this. Let's get it put back to normal. And as you point out, then at some point it stops. And that is considered the resolution of inflammation and the healing process. Is it possible that pro-inflammatory mediators are actually at work that are keeping these cells dividing and saying, no, you're not done yet. We still have more work to do. And because there's a lot of things that cause inflammation in the brain and in the body, excessive iron. Dr. Dale Bredesen talks about wet and dry Alzheimer's disease. We know the gut plays a role. What about the inflammatory process and its role in this in these types of cancers?
So great question. Inflammation is a key part of this. As you said, the wound response pathway is inflammation, and usually what that means is call the immune system, like calling 911, come over here and fix, attack the bacteria that might be in there causing inflammation, or if it's a tissue damage, clean up the damaged cells, right? Eat them up and recycle them. On the other hand, you have to have some new cells being generated to make the new tissue, right? So wound healing is the combination of those two things, inflammation and new tissue generation. So inflammation is critical. And the first time, the first time we looked at our data and we discovered inflammation looks like it's a key part of this process, the first thing we thought about is maybe surgery is actually harming, causing this to get worse, or maybe during surgery we should put anti-inflammatory drugs in there. And so those are the exact experiments that we're following up on.
Can you assess the load of senescent cells in the brain at this point in time? I keep thinking about Dr. Mikhail Blagosklony, who's also been a frequent guest on the show. And senescent cells they make inflammatory cytokines like it's going out of business. And we know that cancer is a disease of aging, and the more senescent cells you have, the more inflammation you have, inflammaging. What about if we look at the brain and go, wow, there's a high load of senescent cells. There's lots of things we can do to reduce senescent cells now. I mean, there's a couple antibiotics. Zithromycin has been shown, it's been approved by the FDA to reduce 70% of the senescent cells in the body in 5 days. How about senescent cell load and it as a component of the pro-inflammatory process?
So senescence is clearly important as well. The inflammation signals, the growth factors that we see are exactly the ones that are associated with the senescent cell response that you talk about, the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP. You might have heard of it. It's, these senescent cells are generating this inflammation. We don't know a lot about how that works. There's another, senescent cells don't divide. We don't know why they're generating these inflammation signals. It's something to do with aging, and we don't know what the balance is of whether what's normal and what's abnormal. There are other types of cells that are quiet. They're called quiescent. Might look the same. So we're studying those. My colleague Peter Dirks, who's a neurosurgeon in Toronto, who is the leader in this area that we've been working with, and Trevor Pugh, who did a lot of the technology development on this project. That's one of the next projects we're studying, is this quiescence, because it's the difference. If the cells are quiescent or senescent, they're not growing. But if they're somehow switching into a growth mode, or if they're telling other cells to switch into growth mode, it could be an important part of the trigger. And those are the types of things we really want to look at.
That's what that was my supposition. It's not the senescent cell that is becoming the tumor, but we know that senescent cells make the cells around them sick by pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they maybe were the ones that were injured, and they're the ones that start dividing and dividing and dividing. So it's not the senescent cells becoming the tumor, but the senescent cells stimulating that type of tissue to become tumorigenic.
Right. And, this is really getting to the core of our study. I haven't mentioned it before, but not every cell in a tumor is the same. There's multiple different types of cells. And in particular, Dr. Peter Dirks, who I mentioned, discovered about 15 years ago brain tumor stem cells. And these brain tumor stem cells are really the root of the tumor. If you take tumor cells that are not stem cells and you put them into a mouse, they won't grow. But if you take a few of these stem cells, these tumor stem cells, and you put them into a mouse, it creates a new tumor. So those are the root of the tumor, and that's normally, we think of these things as quiescent or even senescent, and they're related to the stem cell nature of them. But what we found is that these stem cells are actually expressing inflammatory pathways, that was a big news for us. Wow. Because we think of inflammatory pathways being turned on by other types of cells, the immune cells that come in, but the stem cells themselves are calling the immune system, turning on the immune system, and that new piece of evidence kind of tells us that this, all the cells that are communicating with each other, this ecosystem of cells, as I like to call it, is more complicated than we suspected. But now that we know that the stem cells themselves are kind of turning on the immune system, the inflammatory process, we can really start thinking about how to target those and understand the relationships of that to senescent cells and others.
Are these actually tumor stem cells, or are these stem cells that have kind of gone rogue and become a part of the process of growing a tumor?
Well, we know that we call them stem-like cells. We know that they have stem cell properties, which is they can divide and become other cells. And they can also self-renew, so they regenerate themselves. Those are the hallmarks of stem cells. Now, when we hear stem cells, we think about development, like in the developing body, and stem cells are growing. We also can think about regeneration, because there are stem cells active in our adult body that people think might be important for turning on regenerative processes. But actually, what we think is happening in the brain, and people are starting to discover, is that some cells that we never thought of as stem cells or stem-like cells in the wound response setting actually turn into stem cells. So they're adult cells like astrocytes, and they de-differentiate, they go backwards and become more primitive stem cells. And then they turn on other pathways that start regenerating other cells. So you actually can get, historically or traditionally, people have thought that the stem cells give rise to everything. But now we can see that actually there's certain adult cells that can turn into stem cells.
Wow.
And that's really new, interesting information. And it makes it a lot more complicated for us to think about. So, we know that they have stem-like properties, but whether they're stem cells, the same as the stem cells that created the tissue in the first place, or there are other cells that are, can do surprising things that we just didn't know about because we never thought to look at them in the context of wound response. I think it's the latter. The evidence is coming out that it sort of seems like it's much more interesting than we previously suspected.
This is fascinating. I mean, so many things are going through my head. Most of them probably are not really a part of the discussion, but we've learned so much about a certain fraction of omega-3 fatty acids that are pro-resolving mediators, and they're being used to treat rheumatoid arthritis and other disorders that are inflammatory in nature. We also know that I just did a show about different disease states and the levels of omega-3s in the body. And I think omega-3, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think omega-3s play a large role in brain tissue. Is that true?
As far as I understand, but I've never studied it, so I'm not an expert.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, I'm thinking, I wonder if these people are deficient in omega-3s, and so they don't have that, because the pro-resolving mediators make inflammation do its job and then stop. They resolve. It's just fascinating stuff. This is really, really amazing. I commend you on this work, and I can't wait to see what comes out next. I mean, a lot of the questions we've talked about are things that you and your team will be working on. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see what you learn over the next few years.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our big goal is to try and find therapies.
Yeah, fascinating. Listen, thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Bader.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's great.
All right, take care. That's it for today. Lane Norton is joining us tomorrow. That's going to be a fascinating interview. Lane is very opinionated and has a huge following. And so that should be an interesting interview. Don't forget, 2 different commercial breaks today. The secret word played. And if you heard it, you just have to write it down in an email and send it to onair@superhumanradio.net to be entered to win a box of the new birthday cake style tasty pastries from Legendary Foods. We're giving away a box a day. Your odds are good. So take a moment if you happen to be ignoring the commercials. We had 2 different breaks that the secret word appeared in. Check that out. That's it for today. Oh, also, don't forget Friday, the return after, I don't know, I think it was 4 or 5 years that we haven't done Casual Friday. The return of Casual Friday, this Friday. If you want to send us topics or questions or comments, please send them to casualfriday@superhumanradio.net. Hell, wish Elisa a great return. She hasn't been on the air with me for quite a long time. And we will be doing 1 Casual Friday a month. It'll be the last Friday of every month. So those of you who have been bugging me and saying we miss Casual Friday, bring it back. It is back. And that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Don't forget, share the show. Help somebody out. Share the show. We'll see you tomorrow.